The show that reveals how extraordinary items in our world are designed, constructed and produced. See the engineering, the technology and big ideas that make the world go round. Find out how it works. Coming up, a South African gold mine. The explosive process that brings the valuable metal up from nearly a mile underground. Producing a pool table. Italian slates and Belgian felt make sure that it's a level playing field. And pulping pineapples. How fruit in a field becomes chunks in a can. But first, condoms. They've been around longer than you might guess. The Romans were using them almost 2,000 years ago. Only then they were made out of dried up animal intestines. Thankfully, these days they're mainly made from latex, a naturally occurring rubber. This condom factory keeps it here in these silos. They use ammonia to stabilize it. It has a notoriously unpleasant odor. Fortunately, it's not present in the finished product. 1,000 glass molds go round on an endless loop. They've just been washed and are about to be dipped into the latex. They're continuously turned to make sure they're covered evenly. Although they might look the part already, the material is actually thinner than a human hair. And after a quick dry, you can hardly see them. So the molds go in for the second dip. The thickness and quality of the latex is constantly checked. After all, they've got a very important job to do. Now they're the right thickness, it's on to the next stage. This spinning brush rolls down the tops of the condoms to give them a rim. Next, they're passed through a drying tunnel. The drying process makes them more elastic, so they can be stretched further without breaking. Nothing like a cold bath to cool things down. 80,000 condoms per hour are removed from the molds by water jet. The slimy mass is washed for 60 minutes. For obvious reasons, they have to be completely sterile. In the meantime, a sample from the batch has gone off for testing. They get pushed to their limits to see if they'll make it out in the field. No matter what color they are, all condoms must be able to take 18 liters of air before they explode. These managed between 35 and 40. So the whole batch is deemed okay. Every single condom has to be checked for leaks. The metal rings conduct electricity. If the condoms are airtight when they're dipped into the water, the electricity will stay inside. This monitor can tell if any gets out. Even the smallest hole is detected straight away. Once they've passed, they're off for packaging. They're brushed with silicone oil and rolled up. Next, they get wrapped in their familiar foil pouches, and then they'll be sent to chemists and barber shops across the world. They may be small and simple, but using them is definitely big and clever. They'll help to prevent unwanted pregnancies and reduce the spread of sexually transmitted diseases. Pool is played in pubs and clubs up and down the country. Although there are many different variations on the rules, most of us know the general gist of the game. What a lot of people don't know is that it was actually invented as an indoor version of croquet. Most pool tables are mass-produced in factories, but this company still produces them by hand. First, panels for the tabletop and sides are cut to size. Then, a layer of glue is added so an imitation wood panel can be stuck on top. Once they're in place, the layers are firmly pressed together and the glue spreads evenly, forming a permanent bond. Now it's time to build the frame. This is the part of the table you will be leaving your change on when you're waiting for a game. The 6 pockets are cut out using a drill. For a good game of pool, the balls need to bounce consistently, so the next step of the process is vital. They glue rubber bumpers onto the rails. When they're covered, these will be the cushions, and they'll make sure that the balls rebound evenly every time. The baize cloth used for the surface of the table comes from Belgium. There are strict international standards governing the mix of fabrics and even the color of the cloth. That means that the pool balls should roll roughly at the same speed, whether they're in Barnsley or Bangkok. They use slate from a quarry in northern Italy to form the base of the table. The baize is pulled tight on top and then carefully glued into place. Then they smooth out the edges and pockets to make sure there are no creases. As they secure the cloth to the base, another worker attaches cushions to the frame. The next stage of construction is the internal workings of the table. This mechanism controls the movement of the balls when they go down a pocket. Have you ever wondered how a pool table can tell a winning shot from a foul? It can be done with magnets, but on this table it's even simpler. The white ball is slightly larger than the colored balls, so when it hits a height barrier it's diverted back out again instead of remaining in the machine. The ball release system is controlled by a gearing mechanism, which requires battery power to keep it running. These batteries generally last up to 3 years before they need replacing. Once the system has been completed, a set of balls is passed through to make sure everything is in working order. A few tweaks here and there, and it's finished. Now it's time to put the body of the table together. The final nails are driven in, and for the first time they can see how it will all perform together. The release system is also tested to make sure that the players can start a new game. When the slate goes in, the table will weigh half a ton, and it will be far too heavy to move as a whole unit, so the final assembly takes place on site. First, they fit adjustable legs, then they slot the tabletop into place, and they add the frame on top. The ground in any one place is rarely perfectly flat, so to ensure your games aren't all played at one end of the table, it's checked with a spirit level, and each leg is raised or lowered to even the table out. So the next time you're on a losing streak, before you start blaming the table, just think of all the precision work that went into building it. Coming up after the break, pulping pineapples. How one Hawaiian factory produces over 24 million cans of pineapple every year. And mining for gold. How rubble is brought up from the deepest mine in the world and turned into gold bullion. You wouldn't fancy one of these on your pizza. That's more like it. Since the invention of canning, pineapple has been popular worldwide. And here, in the western mountains of Maui, Hawaii, is one of America's largest pineapple producers. It might look barren, but the rich volcanic soil is actually perfect for growing pineapples. Workers are laying plastic to retain the moisture and keep the bugs and mice out. The new plants will come from pineapple crowns, and they're planted 26 centimeters apart in hundreds of rows. With 9,000 pineapple crowns to be planted by hand every day, it's no stroll in the park. After 18 months, the pineapples are ripe and ready for harvesting. If you've only ever eaten pineapple out of small tins, you might be interested to know that the whole fruit is about 30 centimeters long and weighs around 2 kilos. Unlike a lot of fruits, pineapples stop ripening but the workers know which ones to pick. Brown and yellow pineapples are good to go. Any green ones are left behind for another day. Although most of these pineapples are going to be processed, the best lookers will be sold whole. The pineapples to be processed end up in this truck. Once it's full, it's off to the factory. $140,000 tons of pineapples are processed here every year. First things first, they need to be washed and sorted. It might look like a hedgehog race, but their size determines when they fall through the gap. That's how they get split up into different groups. Peeling and pulping is next. In a one-stop shop, the pineapples are topped and tailed, skinned, and the cores are removed. The rest of the pineapple ends up here. The workers check the fruit for any leftover skin. This machine slices them into rings. The riper, darker, and therefore sweeter pulp goes straight into a tin. The rest is cut into chunks and also tinned. From fresh fruit to tin, the whole process takes just 20 minutes. The pineapples have been processed and packaged and are now ready to top pizzas, spice up fruit salads, and keep lumps of cheese company on cocktail sticks. South Africa may be famous for its diamonds, but here they're digging for gold. These mines near Johannesburg get deeper every day, as a series of explosions blast away the rock to reveal the precious metal. Here, around 150 men descend every day into the deepest mine in the world, 1,300 meters below the surface. Explosions take place in between each shift, so the first job is always to clear out the rubble from yesterday's blast. It's grueling work down there, with temperatures around 35 degrees Celsius and humidity approaching 100%. To loosen the rock, they pound it with high-pressure water hoses. As they burrow deep into the earth, they cut timber joists to size and use them as makeshift columns to support the massive weight of the mine's ceiling. Once the site of yesterday's explosion is cleared, a specialist marks out the position for the new charges. Then the crew uses a powerful drill to create 200 holes in the rock face, which are each a meter deep. When the holes are dug, they attach the explosives to fuses and slide them into the holes ready for action. At the end of the miner's working day, it's time for them to evacuate the mine. And once they're safely above ground, the explosives are detonated. The next day, 9,000 tons of rubble is dropped onto a conveyor belt that carries it to the surface, and from there a train takes it to this processing plant. The rubble's offloaded onto another conveyor belt, and it heads into the plant where the gold will be extracted. Water is added, and then huge barrels grind up the mix. The resulting slag is pumped into these open tanks. Cyanide is added, which separates metals from the other materials. After it's rinsed with water, the sand that's left is shoveled into furnaces. The molten sand is poured into molds where it rapidly solidifies. These bars may look like pure gold, but they're not. They still contain silver and other metals. These will be extracted in the next step. The bars are melted at 1,064 degrees Celsius, and then they can add chlorine. A gas mask and goggles is an essential piece of safety equipment, as the chlorine gives off highly poisonous fumes. It causes the other metals to rise to the surface so they can be skimmed off the top. Now the molten liquid is almost pure gold, they pour it out into molds where it will set into bars. But before it cools and solidifies, they blast off any remaining impurities with a gas burner. Once set, the gold bullion is flipped out and cooled from over 1,000 degrees Celsius to room temperature in just a few seconds. Each gold bar weighs 12.5 kilograms and is worth more than £120,000. What was once rock, blasted out of a mine, has been brought to the surface and refined into one of the most precious metals in the world: solid gold.